Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's class, I'm going to explain to you what are all the definitions of economics. Okay. See, over a period of time during the course of history, various economists have given different definitions uh, to economics, meaning what economics is all about. So they published their books explaining what is the subject matter of economics, what economics studies about. So even though no two economists' opinion is the same, it was possible for us to have a framework of the subject matter of economics. Okay. So now, before moving to the explanation of the definitions of economics, let us have a recap what I explained in the last class. Okay. Okay. So now again we are continuing with the first unit only, that is Introduction to Economics. So in the previous class, we discussed about so this is a recap. Okay. So in the previous class, we discussed about the origin of economics. So origin of economics, I mentioned to you, it will derived from the two Greek words, oikos and nemin, meaning household management. So I explained to you that how each and every household, they have to manage adjust their expenditure according to their income. Then I explained to you what is the meaning of economic activity, that is earning and spending income. So that is the economic activity, and wants are the starting point of the economic activity. I explained to you wants leads to effort secure satisfaction. If one want is satisfied, another want arises. And I also mentioned who are all the economic agents. So who are all the economic agents? Whoever participating in the economic activity, they are all called as the economic agents. So like consumers, producers, traders, and government. Okay. And I also mentioned what is the basic problem everybody is facing. Unlimited wants accompanied by limited alternative uses of means or resources. So people have to make a choice. So finally, what economics is all about, I mentioned that economics studies about how each and every individual allocates their scarce resources, which have, of course, alternative uses, in such a way that they get maximum satisfaction. So this is what we discussed I explained in the previous class. Okay. Now moving on to the today's class. As I mentioned, this is about the next topic in the same unit, definitions of economics. So as I mentioned, different batches or groups of economists, they have given their own opinions of what economics is all about. So there are innumerable definitions given by different economists. So broadly, they are divided into four categories. So the first category is the wealth definitions, that economics is a science of wealth. Some batch of economists, they, according to them, their opinion is that economics studies about wealth. So economics is a science of wealth. So another batch of economists, according to them, it's a economic studies about welfare of the human being. So economics is a science of welfare. So the second category is the welfare definitions. The third one is scarcity definition. So economics is a science of scarcity or science of choice. Okay. And the fourth one is the growth definition. Okay. So these are all the four ways the definitions of economics have been categorized or divided into. So today we will discuss about the, let me explain to you about the wealth definitions. Okay. So first category, wealth definitions. So these wealth definitions were given by the classical economists. So when I say classical economists, these are all the economists or people who studied under the classical school of economics. So they are all called as the classical economists. So the classical economists, they have given the wealth definition of economics. So the main economist in classical category who gave the wealth definition is Adam Smith. Okay. So Adam Smith, he is a Scottish philosopher. So he published a book in 1776, published a book in 1776 known as Wealth of Nations. Okay, so in his definition, he described, Adam Smith described economics as an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. So this is the definition given by Mr. Adam Smith. So what does it say? Economics is an inquiry. It inquires about something. So what it inquires about, the most importantly, the wealth of the nations. Okay. And for your information, Adam Smith is also called as the father of economics. He is being, called as the father of economics because for a long period of time, economics was always associated with politics. It was always called as the political economy. First time Adam Smith tried to separate economics from politics and gave a separate status to economics. Okay, no longer need to be associated with politics. Economics itself can have its own subject matter. So because of this, he was considered as the father of economics. Okay, so now this is the definition given by Adam Smith. And Adam Smith had his own followers who are of the same view that economics studies about wealth. So some of the followers are, for example, J.B. Say. So according to him, J.B. Say, the aim of political economy is to show the way in which wealth is produced, distributed, and consumed. So you can see that he also mentioned about wealth only. And there are other economists like F.A. Walker, J.S. Mill, all all these economists, they belong to the classical school of economics. They are all called as the classical economists. They all are of the same opinion that economics is a science of wealth. Okay, so now let us see what are all the main features of this wealth definition. Economics deals with what are all the main features of the definition given by especially Adam Smith. Okay, so coming to the features of wealth definition. So based on the definition given by Adam Smith and his followers, the first thing we can understand is that the main objective of human activity is only to acquire more and more wealth. Understood? So this is, according to these economists, whatever the activity undertaken by the human beings, it is with the sole purpose of getting more and more amount of wealth. Okay. So now, by assuming the main objective as acquiring more and more amount of wealth, they created a imaginary man known as the economic man. So economic man idea was created by them, whose objective is nothing else apart from getting more and more amount of wealth. So based on this definition, it is assumed that man is considered as a selfish human being whose main motive is to possess or acquire more and more amount of wealth. Okay, so this is the second information we are getting from the wealth definition. So they created someone called as an imaginary man known as the, based on this definition, an imaginary man is created who is called as an economic man. So who is an economic man? So economic man is the one who is not bothered about any other activities, whose activity he will do whatever he wants to acquire more and more amount of wealth. Okay, so this is the second feature we are getting from the wealth definition. But what did Adam Smith mean by wealth? Okay, so in our normal language, wealth, property, money, riches, etc., etc. But Adam Smith exactly did not mean wealth like money or riches. According to Adam Smith, wealth are the goods which are purchased by the human beings. Okay, wealth refers to goods purchased. But unfortunately, the later economists, they did not understand this concept properly. So they also considered wealth only in they also looked upon wealth only in the like money or property or riches. Okay, but Adam Smith actually referred wealth as goods produced. Okay, and now what economics has got to do with all these features of definition? So as far as the wealth definitions are concerned, economics deals with, or economics is a study of economics deals with those activities which are concerned with production, consumption, preservation, and increase of wealth. So according to this definition, how each and every individual, they are consuming, they are acquiring, they are producing, they are conserving, and they are increasing their own wealth. So not only remember the name of the book is Wealth of Nations. So it is not only the individual, the each and every nation should be concerned with how they are producing, consuming, and increasing their own wealth. Okay. So these are all the main features of the wealth definitions given by the classical school of economists. Okay. So now the later economists, the another batch of economists, they found these definitions, they criticized these definitions. Okay. So they are of the opinion that economics should not be concerned with only how people are acquiring, people or the country are acquiring more and more amount of wealth. Economics as a subject should be concerned with other aspects of human activity apart from acquiring more and more amount of wealth. So some of the economists, they have voiced their criticisms against this wealth definition. So let me mention to you what are all the criticisms leveled against the wealth definition. Okay. So criticisms to wealth definitions. So some of the economists, like especially economists like Carlyle and Ruskin, so they are of the view that economics should be concerned with the activities of an ordinary man and not of an economic man. So who is an economic man? I told you he is a selfish human being whose main motive is to acquire more and more amount of wealth. So as per uh, other economists, especially Carlyle and Ruskin, so economics should be concerned with the activities of a common man and not with the activities of an economic man. Okay. So according to them, if economics is going to study about only those activities which are going to promote more and more amount of wealth, if economics is going to study about the activities of only an economic man, then you can call economics as they have given certain titles. So you can call economics as a dark and dismal science. These are all some of the criticisms leveled against these definitions. So dark and dismal science. So why they have addressed economics as a dark, and this is a criticism, please remember, dark and dismal science. Now the thing is, when we say science, science is if you are calling a particular subject as a science, it has got its own status. Say economics is a social science, the other physics, chemistry, they all come under the category of physical science. When you call a particular subject as a science, it has got its own status. Only when the subject is properly framed and it has got its status, then it will be called as a science. So if a particular subject has been called as a science, it has to provide some message. It has to throw some light to the people. Okay. So then only that particular subject should be called as a science. So if you are trying to elevate economics as a science, then it is not throwing any light. It is not giving any proper message to the common man. So then it is only there without any light. It is only a dark and dismal science. If economics is going to study about only the economic activities of the economic man, then economics as a subject is not giving any useful message to the people. So it is not throwing any light to the people. So you can call it as a, if you want to call it as a science, then you might as well call it as a dark and dismal science. Okay, and then other names like bread and butter science. These are all some of the harsh words which they used. Bread and butter science, gospel of mammon, etc. So these are all the criticism leveled against the wealth definitions by the first criticism by Carlyle, and there are other economists also who criticize in this way. Okay, so that is the first criticism, first defect we are finding out about the wealth definitions. Okay, then the second criticism. So the second criticism is given by Marshall. So Marshall, according to Marshall, economics should be studying about the welfare of the human being, not about the wealth of the human being. Okay. So what is the job of wealth? Whatever the wealth which people are having, which people are going to use, that should enable them to promote their own welfare. So economics should be more concerned about the welfare of the human beings and not about the wealth of the human beings. So Marshall criticized that economics should be more concerned about the welfare of human being rather than their wealth. So according to Marshall, wealth is only a mean or only a way in which a people can acquire their own welfare. Wealth is only a mean to acquire welfare. So as per his opinion, economics should be more concerned about the welfare of the human beings rather than the wealth of the human beings. Okay, that is the second criticism leveled by Marshall. And the third one is wealth definition is concerned only with the economic activity, human activity, but those activities dealing with only the material goods. So, or in other words, wealth definitions are concerned with only the material goods, or in other words, it ignores the non-material services. So can highlight it, non-material services purchased or used by the people. I mentioned to you what Adam Smith referred he as wealth. According to him, wealth refers to goods. But people are not only buying goods, they are also buying services also, isn't it? The service of the doctors, lawyers, teachers, wholesalers, retailers, transport. So many services are also being utilized by the people to promote their own. That also comes under economic activity. The moment you spend the money income comes under the economic activity. But he very specifically mentioned wealth refers to goods only. Okay, so that means what? He ignored the non-material activities of the human beings. So if you are ignoring one part of the activity performed done by the human beings, and you are restricting the scope of the subject, of any subject for that matter. So that means what? Economics is going to talk about only the activities, that is the earning income and spending income, by the people to purchase only goods. So it is totally ignoring the services aspect activity of the human beings. So to that much extent, the scope of the subject economics is restricted. Okay. So the non-material services purchased or used by the people. Okay. So that is the another major defect pointed out by the later economists. Okay. And finally, one more criticism. So the next criticism is, as per these definitions, economics is concerned, again, especially Adam Smith's definition, economics is concerned mainly with the production of wealth, ignoring the distribution aspect of wealth. Okay. So if what do we mean by the everybody is interested in acquiring more and more amount of wealth, that is according to Adam Smith. Okay, maybe also his followers. So if the wealth is, if each and every nation is bothered only about producing or generating more and more amount of wealth without bothering about the distribution of wealth, what will happen in a nation? There will be too much of income inequalities in a country. Okay. So that is not the correct way of development, isn't it? So it is not only the generation of wealth, the wealth generated in a nation should also be properly distributed. So that aspect is neglected by the definitions given by the economists who propagated economics as a science of wealth. Okay. So because of all these criticisms, these wealth definitions were discarded by the later economists. And towards the end of the 19th century, Alfred Marshall, he gave his own version of economics. So he published a book towards the end of the 19th century, and he gave the welfare definition of economics, which I will explain to you people in the which will I explain in the next class. Okay. So these are all this is the first batch of economists who define properly economics is what economics is all about. So economics as a subject, like this only, the economics as a subject slowly evolved. So the first batch of people, they treated economics as a science of wealth. Then the next batch of economists, they described economics as a science of welfare. Then the third set of economists, they described economics as a science of scarcity, and finally growth. So this is how the subject matter of economics evolved. Okay. So as I mentioned, I will explain to you about the welfare definition in my next class. So if you people have any doubts, you can mention in the comment box. And if you also have any suggestions, please feel free to mention in the comment box. So if you think that this video is useful, please like it, share it, subscribe it. Okay. So until my next video, bye bye. Take care.